When I began to look at the destruction of the World Trade Center and especially the Twin Towers, it was astonishing to me how obvious the evidence was that the government account couldn't possibly be correct. Of course, the government maintains that the buildings came down as a result of the impact of jet aircraft resulting jet fuel fires, which weakened or melted the steel and led to a pancake collapse. That's indefensible on every count. The buildings were designed to withstand the impact of the then largest commercial airliners, which were Boeing 707s, very similar in their size and mass and fuel capacity to the 767s that actually hit the building. Most of the fuel from these planes burned up in spectacular fireballs. The fires that resulted were relatively modest. The melting point of steel turns out to be 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest temperature you can acquire with a jet fuel-based fire, which is principally kerosene incidentally, is 1,000 degrees lower under ideal circumstances. The billowing black clouds indicated these were oxygen-starved or deprived fires that were burning much lower temperatures. In fact, the estimates on all sides are those fires were only running about 500 degrees Fahrenheit, much too low, obviously, for the steel to have melted or even to have weakened, since Underwriters Laboratory had certified the steel up to 2,000 degrees for 3 to 4 hours. The fire in the South Tower burned only around an hour, in the North an hour and a half. So the fires were too low and too brief in duration to have caused the steel to even weaken. If the steel had weakened, there would have been asymmetrical sagging, it would have been gradual, and you wouldn't have had enough dynamic energy to cause a collapse in any case. The whole theory of a pancake collapse is a physical impossibility.
Pancake theory, according to which the fires, while not melting the steel, heated it up sufficiently to cause the floors weakened by the airplane strikes to break loose from the steel columns, and this started a chain reaction.
So you would expect then from that theory, which is the official theory, to see a whole stack of floors piled up on top of each other and then a spindle of core columns standing too.
The core of each of the Twin Towers consisted of 47 massive steel columns. If the floors had broken loose from them, these columns would have still been sticking up into the air 1,000 feet.
The plane did not cut all those core columns.
We designed the buildings to take the impact of the Boeing 707 hitting the building at any location.
The building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners.
That the plane flew straight into the building?
Through him, right. Yeah.
So you're saying that the building was actually designed to cope with a hole like that and still survive?
Yeah, it was.
If you had dropped, say, a billiard ball from the top of the World Trade Center, 110 floors up there, it would have taken 8 to 10 seconds to hit the ground, encountering no resistance whatsoever.
The Twin Towers came down in nearly free fall speed. 200,000 tons of steel shatters and explodes outwards over 500 feet.
This means that floors shattered at an average rate of about 10 floors per second.
There is no scenario for a pancake effect of buildings falling that allows them to fall at the rate of free fall.
Now what can do that? What can move mass out of the way? Explosives. "47 huge steel columns going up the core. They're interconnected. How do you get them to fail simultaneously so the core disappears? It looks like those core columns were cut.
The way we do this is by cutting the beam at an angle.
Who knows who it was done by, but we're trying to get to the bottom of this. The scientific evidence is laid out there by architects and engineers. There's a stand down Dick Cheney, how did Dick Cheney happen to have control of NORAD that day? NORAD was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I live in Las Vegas, and I've actually witnessed some of these buildings coming down. I saw the Showboat come down and other ones. You see the pulverized concrete, you see the explosions and the demolitions. You see the footage of 9/11 and you see controlled demolitions, and they're so similar, it just has to, you have to ask questions.
6 out of the 10 9/11 Commission members have gone public stating that there was a cover-up, that the government agreed to cover up 9/11. 2 out of the 5 lawyers on the commission have also gone public stating there was a cover-up. There was evidence found of nanothermite, high-grade military explosive found in the rubble of not just the first 2 World Trade Centers, but also Building 7. There's no explanation for that other than a controlled demolition. The media refuses to cover this, and the government is hiding it too, and there's a smear campaign on 9/11 truthers, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. We're going to bring the truth out, and we're going to demand it. We're calling for a new investigation on 9/11. There's already 80,000 signatures from New York, and we're going to demand a new investigation. Everybody should support one.
We got 108 video cameras around the Pentagon. They have no picture of a plane going into it. Mayor Giuliani said something about that tower is coming down, so he had to leave. He wasn't even in his building, Building 7. That was his major bunker to go to. There was a major emergency in the building, in the city. Why wasn't he there in Building 7 at the time?
I'm more for reinvestigating 9/11. I think there are a lot of unanswered questions about the report and that day, leading up to that day, after that day, that need to be answered. There are too many unanswered questions about that day, about the administration, about the people that benefited after the fact, the 2 wars, everything to do with it, that need to be reinvestigated and taken another look at.
Well, this is another example of a massive lie in the 9/11 Commission report. They admitted that all this information they were getting from these men through the CIA, they couldn't vouch for its reliability. They were not allowed. First they said, we want to interview, let's just say KSM. That's the shorthand. Everybody calls Khalid Sheikh Mohammed just KSM. We want to interview him ourselves. The CIA said absolutely not. Well, then we would like to watch them being interviewed. So wherever they're being held, we'll fly and watch it through one-way glass. Absolutely not. Well, then we would like to interview the interviewers. So we would like to talk to the people who interviewed them. Absolutely not. So here the 9/11 Commission is supposed to be getting information, but the CIA could have been making all this up. Or they could have been getting KSM to testify to all sorts of things by torturing him until he would testify. And everybody admits that torture, virtually everybody admits that torture, evidence coming from torture is unreliable because people will say almost anything to stop the torture. Most of us would probably. So they admitted this. And nevertheless, the whole 9/11 Commission report is based on the assumption that they've got good evidence that Osama bin Laden is responsible.
Although we are told that 4 or 5 of the alleged hijackers were on each of the flights. If so, their names should have been on the flight manifests. But the flight manifests that have been released contain neither the names of the alleged hijackers nor any Arab names whatsoever.
We know that the men who were supposedly the hijackers had their houses, cars, credit cards paid for by the U.S. government. They were in truth agents.
Evidence was also apparently planted. The passport of one of the hijackers on Flight 11 was allegedly found in the rubble.
Goes through the fireball, through the side of the plane, and comes down to the ground unscathed. But something happened. For 6 months they reported they had this passport. Boy, we've got it, we've got the proof. And then the guy stood up and was alive.
Several of these 19 men are still alive.
I couldn't believe it when the FBI put me on their list. But I am not a suicide bomber. I am here, I am alive. I have no idea how to fly a plane. At least 5 of the so-called hijackers are still alive. The FBI has to this day not revised that list. No evidence has ever linked any of the alive or dead hijackers to Osama bin Laden.
When he was already America's most wanted criminal, he reportedly spent 2 weeks in the American hospital in Dubai, was treated by an American doctor, and visited by the local CIA agent.
We have not seen one piece of evidence that links Osama bin Laden directly to the planning stages of September 11th.
Bin Laden, in a video allegedly found in Afghanistan, admitted responsibility for the attacks. This confession is now widely cited as proof. But the man in this video has darker skin, fuller cheeks, and a broader nose than the Osama bin Laden of all other videos. We again seem to have planted evidence.